There's a lot of interest these days in securing the pharmaceutical supply chain. There are initiatives, for example, in the US, in the EU, in Saudi Arabia, I think in many places, and it makes a lot of sense. And I think everybody agrees that the resilience of the pharmaceutical supply chain needs to be strengthened. Now, what does that mean? So I would like to do something a bit different today and start a kind of educational mini-series. We'll see how that works. If it works well on LinkedIn, I'll do a couple more chapters to it. But I want to start with the question, what is a pharmaceutical supply chain? How does it look like when we draw a supply chain map? So at high level, if we just map the manufacturing sites and the connection between them, we can distinguish three different pieces of the pharmaceutical supply chain. The first one I'd like to call the chemical supply chain. Most pharmaceutical drugs are made by synthetic chemistry still today. And this means the molecules, the active ingredient, is built by putting together smaller pieces. And it's a bit like Lego. And all these smaller pieces converge in one. That's the API, the active ingredient. That's where the whole supply chain converges, and then it diverges again. It goes into galenic manufacturing. Let's say with this API, we are making two different dosages. We make tablets and we make vials. The tablets come in two different strengths. So there are different sites that do that. And then finally, the drug product is packaged. So it's then ready for market with the patient leaflet and with the carton. In this case, it is for the UK. And then we go into distribution with warehouses, and then from there to the patient dispensing points. Typically, that's hospitals and pharmacies. So this is the end-to-end supply chain from the chemical raw materials and intermediates to the finished products that is then dispensed to patients. So this already looks complex, right? And since it's a map, we have to put the geographical locations on each of these manufacturing sites, and then we will realize that pharmaceutical supply chains are indeed quite globalized. This has been driven over the past decades. Economies of scale, manufacturers, regulations, and so on. And this is where we are today. Very often, a pharmaceutical supply chain really spans the globe. A lot of the chemical manufacturing is done in China. Still, US, India, Europe have a role to play, but most is done in China. And the galenic production could be anywhere. Let's assume it's in Europe here. The packaging could be in the same site or it could be elsewhere. The distribution in the end is always local. But really, we are spanning the whole globe. I think it's one of the most globalized supply chains overall. So now that we understand how a pharmaceutical supply chain looks like, we can think about how can we make it more resilient. And that's what I want to talk about in one of my next videos. Stay tuned.